Hi, I'm Chris Lewis, a firefighter for the Lakeville Fire Department, and welcome to another edition of On Call. The goal of this program is to educate and inform the citizens of Lakeville about how their all-volunteer fire department trains in response to emergencies. Let's take a look at what's coming up on this edition of LFD On Call. We take a look at our new ABLE training facility in Burnsville and find out what it took to build such a structure. Fire Chief Mike Meyer talks with Fire Inspector Jay O'Connell about smoke alarms and CO detectors and what you need to know to keep you safe in your house. Firefighter Paul Elan from Station 4 answers a viewer question in Ask the Firefighter. I will get you caught up on the latest happenings around the fire department, and Scratch the Fire Dog takes a look at our newest brush truck. Since the 1980s, the communities of Apple Valley, Burnsville, Lakeville, and Egan have teamed up to operate the joint training facility in Burnsville known as ABLE. After years of training among the four departments, the buildings were falling apart, and it was decided that something new was needed, and plans began on a replacement. Last fall, the old structures were demolished to make way for a new state-of-the-art training facility. Construction of the new structure finished up this past summer, and a ceremony was held with representatives from all four cities marking the opening of the new ABLE training facility.
Yeah, the building is excellent. I mean, it's you know, one of the state-of-the-art buildings for the area and certainly the region. So our firefighters from all four cities are going to have the ability to use this facility to train in every single scenario they can come up with in a residential or commercial or industrial setting. We have all that here now. In our previous facility, we couldn't do that. So our firefighters are going to be more prepared and more trained than they ever were before. And so we're really looking forward to that and what this building is capable of.
Today we're here at our new ABLE facility in Burnsville, and I'm with Quinn Hudson of C&H Architects. Quinn, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
All right, so first of all, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and C&H Architects?
Absolutely. C&H Architects is a commercial architectural firm based in the Apple Valley. We do a lot of work around the South Metro, but around the state, Iowa, Wisconsin, and so forth. We've been around for 50 years, and I've been with the company for 26 of those, and I'm one of the two principals.
Great. So have you ever built a building like this before?
Not just like, not like this. This is definitely one of those that we really look forward to learning about and working together on.
Okay.
But we have done a lot of fire station work and other municipal projects.
Okay. So with a building like this, speaking of working together, have you ever worked with several cities all at once too, or something like that?
We have worked together with some cities, but never four at once, and this is really quite an amazing approach, and I think that it's very wise for the cities to work together and provide a facility like this that it really makes good cost benefit for all four cities.
Okay, so then four different cities divide, you know, a cost instead of...
Absolutely, and then sharing the training. You know, as you know, firefighters need 12 different recertifications every year, plus other skills that you need to keep honed, and all the stations need those things, and this is a facility to help do that.
Okay, excellent. So what can you tell us, when you say you haven't built a building quite like this before, what challenges did you have when it came to actually designing and creating this facility? Well,
knowing that we've had a lot of fire experience, but we still haven't done a burn building before, we went and searched and found Roger LeBeff out of E&M's structural engineer out of Virginia.
Okay.
And they are really specialists in working with burn buildings, particularly the Class A like this. And they've done, in fact, over 60 buildings in this type.
Okay, so you actually had to go to Virginia to find people to help you with this one here.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to bring some of the best people in to work with us to do this, so that we can provide the ABLE communities really with the best burn building you can get.
Excellent, fantastic. So what can you tell me what I might see that's unique or new?
Well, I think really, particularly compared to where you were before with the smaller tower and burn building, you have a lot of scenarios that you can create with this burn building. It can, depending on where you enter and how you go, it can mimic a split-story residential, a residential basement, residential attic. You can have apartment hallways, commercial buildings, garage. Mm-hmm. You really have a lot of variety in one building location.
Yeah, because I know the last building that we had, actually there were two buildings in this facility.
Yes.
That were very limited. Yep. and pretty outdated, am I right?
That's correct. And the two buildings, the burn building itself only had 2 rooms, and so it was pretty obvious to all the firefighters coming that the fire is going to be one of those 2 rooms, right where to go.
Yep.
with all the rooms you have to set fires in this facility, it's just a multitude of opportunities to create different scenarios.
Okay, great. And then we can also do search practice in here as well, correct?
Search, rescue, so things like rappelling, ladder evolutions. You can do hose maneuvers and going up and down stairwells. There's a standpipe that you can use like a commercial stairwell.
Okay.
There's just a variety of different training experiences you can get in the building besides the burn itself.
And also you mentioned that this is a Class A type building. Now, there are different types of buildings that you can burn in, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things that our team talked to the different cities, the Able community with about, was whether it would be a Class A burn building, which is a wood fire, as you know, or a gas burn fire, which is a much lower temperature and gives you a different training experience. Mm-hmm. And the Class A is really, the decision that the group made, and I think it's going to really serve you well.
And that's where we just bring pallets,
straw,
old trees, something, straw bales. Yeah, we'll just throw those in there and light those up, right?
Right, and that way you get the smoke, automatically. You're getting much higher temperatures, which are more, realistic to the fires you would have out in real practice.
Excellent. So what are we actually doing here today? What do we have to do to this building before we put it into play?
Absolutely. Today you're doing some early setting burns that cure the tile that are inside the building. They're controlled burns at a relative temperature rate. And you have to do that in all the spaces so that it's then cured and ready to go.
So Quinn, what are some unique features of this type of building versus maybe some other burn buildings that you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the early decisions that we made to do in the construction of this building was to use a exposed exterior concrete poured superstructure that supports the building, and then use sacrificial concrete block walls. What that means is that the concrete block walls throughout the building don't support the building. They're just infilling and creating the rooms. And then as you burn them over the years and mini burns, they start to deteriorate a little bit, and it's a really relatively inexpensive replacement of those walls versus the approaches where the other main approach really is to have a fully insulated building with very expensive insulation tile. Mm-hmm. And then over time, when that gets, deteriorates too much, it's very expensive to repair. So this is a very economical way to get a burn building.
Okay, so just looking at what we see here, what are we looking at that might be?
Well, some of the first features you see is the double door here represents a garage. Okay. And you could do scenarios that would involve a garage fire. Okay. There's also some sprinkler heads in there, so you can have some live sprinkler heads just to see how that impacts the facility. The stairwell down there is kind of a split entry stair and goes into the residential part of the building, and that's one of the features you see. And as you start moving up the building, you've got the different balconies. You have windows that you can go in and out, with ladder evolutions. The sloped roof representing more of the residential side, the flat roof the commercial side.
Okay. All right, Quinn, so what is this part of the facility that we're looking at right behind us here?
This is an outdoor classroom building. It replaces what was just some open bleachers in the past, but this is a place for the firefighters after they've done a rotation, through the firefighter building to the burn building, come over here, relax, maybe do some training on the whiteboard. There's some teaching capabilities here. But take your gear off and just wait for the next rotation.
So yeah, this would be a great debrief area. I didn't see that whiteboard before, but that's fantastic. All right, Quinn, so now we're up on the roof of this new facility, and I see a lot of different features. What are we looking at up here?
Well, first of all, we're looking at roofs, as you mentioned, both a sloped roof that would be typical for residential type construction, and a flat roof that you'd see in commercial. We have two openings, both for ventilating the roofs, or also creating breach exercises where you can open these up, break through, and access the lower levels and a potential fire through that locations. Over in this sloped roof one, we have where the gates are, you could open that up. You could get the ladder up here, put a roof ladder, hook it over the wood triangle up here, and access the breach exercise area there.
Excellent. What about what do we have up here on this level?
The upper level there is a fourth level, so you can also use that for accessing and practicing ladder truck evolution, coming out the ladder, exiting to that. Obviously, there's some safety features here you wouldn't have in all the burn locations. You don't always have access to nice railings and stuff and tie-offs, but we certainly want the experience to be safe as well.
Exactly right. So what other features do we see in a building like this that we might not have seen before?
Well, certainly one of the ones that I think is interesting is you have a hose stream closet where you can shoot the water gun into this window.
Okay.
The whole room is lined with steel plating so that the that high pressure water doesn't eat away at the building itself.
So we're talking about water off of the tip of the ladder,
absolutely,
or maybe a deck gun off of the engine itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's just target practice, basically.
It's target practice. Yep.
Excellent.
But
okay.
it's handling that water and giving you a shot to do that where you're not deteriorating the building.
Okay. And then I noticed also a pond out back. What is that part of the facility too?
Absolutely. With all the water that you use to put out the fires, we need to collect that water, and we want it to settle out because there's some particulates in it, mostly ash from the wood burning. Mm-hmm. But that settles out through there and then infiltrates and cleans the water as it moves back into the
so we're
water
environmentally
system. Absolutely
safe as well.
Yes.
Well, Quinn, thanks for coming out today and giving us a quick tour of this amazing new facility that you guys designed and built for us.
Wonderful. Really my pleasure to do so, and I really hope it serves the communities well.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we come back, Fire Chief Mike Meyer covers smoke alarms and CO detectors and what you need to know about them.
Welcome to another edition of Chief's Corner. I'm Fire Chief Mike Meyer, and today I'm joined by Fire Inspector Jay O'Connell to talk about smoke detectors in-house. Welcome, Jay.
How you doing, Chief?
Let's start with what type of smoke detectors do we commonly see in houses and that we, I guess, have issues with. That's one of the common calls that we do respond to as a fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, most homes have the ionization smoke detector, okay? And these are good for about 10 years. We're trying to have an effort to have people go ahead and replace them after 10 years because people just don't do maintenance on them. You vacuum your carpets, but how many people have ever said they vacuumed out their smoke alarm? The dust is still flying throughout the house. So we're trying to get people to replace their smoke alarms after 10 years. That's a recommendation from the State Fire Marshal's office.
So smoke alarms typically detect smoke, but there's more to it than that when we talk about dust and particles in the air. So let's go talk a little bit about that as far as what they're actually looking at or detecting off of.
Yep, the smoke alarms are actually picking up on particles. So there's a light beam in there, and when the particles of dust are in there, so we had somebody that went on vacation for a week. They hadn't moved a door in their house. They came home, they opened all the doors, the dust went into the detector and kept going off. It went off for about an hour before she called us and said, how can I fix this? And we just had her unclick the detector and then bang it down on a table, and amount of dust came out that you couldn't believe. So if you just take a simple vacuum cleaner with those black bristles and you vacuum just around the edges, that should clear up the sensor.
How about using like a can of air that you use like to clean off your computer? Is that another way to clean them?
You could use that, but there is a chemical in there that you don't want to get right on the sensor, so you want to hold it back a ways. I prefer the vacuuming of them.
Okay. Jay, there's different brands of smoke alarms out there, and the one that you have is a battery powered. So let's touch a little bit about different manufacturers that's there, and then the power sources for those different brands.
The battery powered ones came out in the 70s. They still work great, but now battery powered ones, you want to replace these batteries probably every 6 months to a year. So usually when we tell people to change your clocks, that's when we want you to change your battery.
Okay.
But now people tell me theirs are hardwired, so they're getting most of their power from the house. The only time you're using the battery is when you have a power outage. Okay? Yep. So if you have a lot of power outages, you're going to need to replace the battery more often. If you don't have one, it's probably good for 2 years, but we still want to remember to change out those batteries. Now, they do have a new smoke alarm, which is a 10-year long life battery. These are great for vaulted ceilings where you can't actually get the ladder out, get up there and change out the batteries. So this is great for a senior citizen, 10 years, and then you throw it away and get a brand new one. So this is a newer technology that they've come out with. So we do like this one also.
Okay. One question I have for you, as far as, say you've reached that 10 years on your house has been there for 10 years, you need to replace your detector. What's the best way of going about, you know, you want to pull that one down and go replace it, but
right.
Where should you go and how should you go find that one so you don't have to worry about wiring?
What I recommend is you unclick the smoke alarm, then there's an electrical switch that you gotta hold the clip and pull that down. I would take the detector in and have the person at the hardware store get you the same brand. If you take it in, you get the same brand, the connection is gonna match and the turn is gonna match. So you don't even need a screwdriver.
Okay.
So you can just take it, click it back in, turn it, and you're back in service.
All right.
So, but stay with the same brand, because Nike and Adidas, sometimes they don't like to talk to each other, and if you're going to replace them throughout the house, same thing, stay with the same model.
Okay, and then we're moving on to another conversation as far as detectors, but carbon monoxide detectors are something that's required by state code in a house now, so let's talk a little bit about those.
Yep. So, carbon monoxide alarms, just in the past few years, they put a state statute out that says that you need to have these within 10 feet of your bedroom. Everybody in Minnesota needs to have them because of our cold weather, and most places use LP or propane or natural gas. So we want to make sure that we have one of these detectors in your home. It detects when your furnace is not burning the gas cleanly. So this one here, you can see explosive gas. That's for propane, okay? So basically, if you're out in the country and you're running propane for your heat, this would be the model that you would want. You'd want propane, or the explosive gas. Now, if you have a house in town and you're just using natural gas, then you don't need this model. This one is more expensive. You can get by with a model probably for $30, but we like one that has the digital readout. This one will give you a number. When it's showing 0, that means everything's fine. When this thing starts alarming, that means it's probably around the 40 parts per million mark, and you want to get out of the house. When it's over 100, don't turn your phone on to call somebody. Don't turn the light switches on. Get out of the house.
Okay.
Now, these are good for about 5 years, and there is a date of manufacture on the back. This one is actually out of date. That's why it's a good demo. So if you unplug it, this one plugs into a wall outlet and has a battery backup. But after 5 years, we want to replace these. So when I just finished safety camp and we tell the kids, go to Grandma and Grandpa's house, check the date, the birthday on the back of the carbon monoxide alarm, and make sure that they have one.
Okay.
So.
And just like a smoke detector, there are different brands out there. This is a Nighthawk.
Yes.
You have a First Alert.
I have a First Alert brand. Same with the digital readout. We like that it's got a peak level button. So as a fire department, you're gone at work all day, you come home, the thing's alarming. So by having the peak level button, I can press that and see what the highest level was at your home throughout the day. Because as soon as you open the doors, fresh air comes in, the level goes down. So we like that peak level button. And then we also work with the gas companies that when we do get an alert, and our specialized meter also lets us know that there's a problem, that the gas company will come out and they'll help us out to pinpoint like a pinhole leak.
Yep. And you mentioned, you know, that normally the CO monitors are going to find something that's not burning properly. You mentioned gas appliances, so it could be your water heater, it could be your furnace, a gas fireplace, or a gas stove. The other one that we do commonly see, especially in the winter months, is somebody's going to start their car to warm it up prior to going to work, and they leave it in the garage. That CO gas is going to find its way into the house, and then eventually the detector is going to detect it and sound alarm, and then we're going to try to find that source. But one thing to remember for our residents is not to, if you're going to warm up your car in the winter months, back it out of the garage, keep it out of the garage, otherwise that gas will get into the house.
Correct.
And then we have one other style, we don't have one here with us, but a dual detector, smoke detector and CO
Carbon
detector.
monoxide. Yep. And those are more common in newly built homes. The electricians will put that into service. It's out in the hallway. But those I don't like as much because it's got a 3 beep versus 4 beeps to tell you the difference between the detectors, or the alarms, sorry. And it's hard when you wake up in the middle of the night. Was it carbon monoxide? Was it 4 beeps or was it 3 beeps and it's a smoke alarm? So they make some that talk to you. That would be a good option. But I like having the two separate. You can put it out in the hallway down by the outlet, so then you know which one's going off.
Correct. And then generally the dual detectors are mounted at the ceiling. They don't have a digital readout, so if you determine that it is CO that it's reading, you don't have a reading of what that actual number is, and that's when we come into play with our equipment that we bring in to find out what we're actually getting. Thanks, Jay. That'll do it for this edition of Chief's Corner.
Thanks for having me.
And now let's go back to Chris and get an update on what has been happening around the fire department.
Thanks, Chief. This summer has been a busy one with a variety of calls for emergency services. And one unusual one came at the Air Lake Airport in early July. A student pilot and instructor were out flying a 1950s Cessna 120 and it crashed during a landing. According to the instructor, the airplane began to swerve left and right. The student did not make the proper corrections, so he took over the flight controls. During the recovery, the brakes were applied, the airplane nosed over, and it came to rest inverted on the runway. When first responders arrived, both pilots were out of the plane and apparently just shaken up from the ordeal. The runway was closed for a good part of the day while the NTSB investigated the incident. LFD stayed on scene in case a fire occurred, but eventually the plane was removed from the runway and the airport opened back up for takeoffs and landings. LFD responds to accidents frequently around town, and many times they happen on the interstate. On a clear sunny day in mid-July, a few drivers were apparently playing bumper cars along I-35 near Lake Marion. Everyone was able to get out of their vehicles and extrication was not needed. LFD assisted with traffic control and cleanup of fluids and debris on the roadway. The right lane was closed, which backed up traffic for about a mile, but eventually all the vehicles were removed and both lanes reopened to traffic. As a reminder, if you drive by an accident scene, always be cautious for first responders and keep your eyes on the road. House fires don't occur as often as you might think, but recently we've had at least one large fire and a few calls that could have been much worse. In July, we had 2 near house fires that were put out before they could really get going. The first was out in Eureka Township off of Highview Avenue. A lamp to keep some baby chicks warm somehow started a fire in the basement. By the time LFD responded, the owners had gotten the fire out. Firefighters double-checked the scene and then ventilated the smoke from the house, and no chicks were harmed in the incident. Another near disaster also happened in July at a house in downtown Lakeville. Somehow the stovetop burner got turned on and debris on the top started on fire. All the occupants got out of the house safely and thought the fire might have been out. Fire Marshal Brian Carsonson was first to respond and went in to investigate. Upon entering the home, he found the fire was still active and worked quickly to fill a container with water from a nearby sink and put the fire out before it spread to the entire house. Firefighters removed the burnt materials from the house and ventilated the structure. In mid-August, LFD responded to a lightning strike call at Main Street Manor, a senior living facility in downtown Lakeville. The lightning caused the elevator to stop working and some residents were trapped. Fortunately, they were not in there for too long as first responders got them out soon after arriving. Firefighters checked the building for damage and for fire that could have started in areas of the building as a result of the lightning strike. Nothing was found and the building was deemed safe for residents to continue to occupy. Unfortunately, also in mid-August, we had a major house fire in northwest Lakeville. Crews were called out at about 1:30 a.m. to a non-hydrated part of town and needed tenders from other communities to assist in bringing water to the scene. Firefighters worked to put out the fire, but were on scene for many hours. All the occupants woke up and got out of the house in time. You wouldn't believe it in this day and age, but the house apparently did not have any working smoke alarms. Luckily, someone woke up and alerted the household of 8 people to get out of the house. We easily could have had many fatalities on this call from the decision of the homeowner not to install working smoke alarms. This is a good time of year for you to check your smoke alarms and replace all batteries. And on the lighter side, LFD participated in 2 safety camps this summer. Fire Inspector Jay O'Connell talked to kids about things they can do to be fire safe, including having working smoke alarms in your house, and showed off some equipment firefighters use, and the kids got to meet Sparky. These annual events also include presentations from the police department and other organizations to teach kids how to be safe. And those are some of the things that happened around the fire department.
Hi, my name is Paul Elin, an engineer out of Station 4. On today's Ask a Firefighter question comes to us from Tina in Lino Lakes. And Tina asked, can you talk about the different types of fire suppression systems available, the requirements, and what systems are appropriate for residences, commercial buildings, warehouses, and public buildings? Thanks for your question, Tina. Determining the type of suppression system can vary greatly depending on where it is and how the area is being used. So I will try and answer this in more general terms. Fire suppression systems use a combination of dry chemicals and/or wet agents to suppress fire. Most people would think of a fire sprinkler system that simply sprays water to put out a fire. These are very common in many types of buildings and areas. But there are other types, including gaseous and systems that use wet and dry chemical agents. Every situation is different, and determining what type is needed can be very dependent on a variety of factors. In the United States, fire suppression systems are governed by the codes under the National Fire Protection Association. So architects, contractors, installers, building inspectors, and fire marshals must follow these guidelines when a suppression system is being used or installed. As far as residential housing, some multifamily housing are required to have a suppression system, such as apartment buildings. But single-family homes have no such requirements. We are seeing more and more suppression systems being installed into new home construction. While there is an initial cost for a single-family residential, part of the cost can be returned over time with lower insurance rates, increased building value, and how can you put a price on losing a loved one or personal valuables that simply can't be replaced? Thanks, Tina, for your question. If you have a question for Ask the Firefighter, send it to us using the information on the screen.
This is the Scratch, the fire dog, because I like to scratch out the fires. Hey, I'm so excited because today I get to discover the new LFD brush truck. And I've got a brush here to donate, 3D. So I got my brush, so let's head over and look at the new brush truck. Hey, Firefighter Brian, how are you? It's me, Scratch the Fire Dog.
I'm good. How about you, Scratch?
Good. Hey, I've got a brush here to donate to the brush truck, and you know what? I also happen to have a small little brush, so I thought it'd be great to start out our episode today by showing how you use the brushes on the brush truck.
Well, we could use these brushes on a couple things, but we definitely wouldn't be able to use them on this truck.
You mean, well, wait a minute. I'm so confused. You got a new brush truck, but you don't use brushes on them? What is the brush in the brush truck then standing for there, Firefighter Brian?
Well, the brush truck stands for brush fire. This truck we use for grass fires and brush fires.
Oh, I get it. Oh, I'm such a dog. I'm so confused. Well, hey, Brian, could you show us some of the cool things on the brush truck here? Like, what is this device here?
Well, Scratch, right here, this is called a winch.
It's a what?
A winch.
Oh, okay.
Now, we can use this for if for some reason we happen to get this truck stuck, and we also use it for some of our other training.
Oh, very cool. Well, so how many pounds can you pull with something like this winch?
This is about a 9,500 pound winch. 9,500 pounds.
Well, that's a lot of weight there that you can pull.
It is.
Very cool. Well, tell you what, why don't you show some of the other things on the truck here, Brian?
All right, Scratch, let's go back.
Oh, firefighter, Brian, this is an excellent truck. How many firefighters can you fit into this vehicle?
Scratch, we can put 4 firefighters in here.
Very good. Now, why would you use this vehicle as opposed to one of the bigger trucks to go fight, you know, like a grass fire?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is this truck is four-wheel drive, and we can take this truck off-road, where some of the bigger fire trucks, they'd go off-road and they'd be stuck right away.
Oh, very smart. You guys are so smart, these firefighters. Now, what kind of special things do you have there on your control panel in the front there to use?
Scratch, inside of here, we've got all of our controls for our lights, for our radio, for the pump in the back, and anything we'd need to operate the truck, including the winch.
Excellent. Well, can we go back and see some of the cool things that are in the rear of the brush truck, please?
Yes, we can.
All right, here we go. Oh, wrong direction. This way. Oh, this is the coolest stuff, Brian. All of the cool equipment you use to put out the fire. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the hoses that you use here?
Scratch, this is the cool part of the truck, and this is the pump. Now this is what does all the work on the truck. This pumps all of the water out into the hoses that we have to put the fire out.
Now, how come you have 2 different sizes of hoses here, at least from my count? What's the difference in the size hose that you use?
Well, we actually have 3, Scratch.
Oh!
We have 2.5, 1 3/4, and 1-inch forestry line.
Pardon my miscounting, I'm just the dog.
That's okay.
So how come you have different sizes, though?
Well, it depends on how much water we need to use, and this truck only has a certain amount of water in it. So if we had one of these great big hoses hooked up, we'd use all of our water really quick and we wouldn't be able to conserve it for fire.
Ah, I understand. Now, how many gallons of water does the brush truck contain?
This truck has 250 gallons of water on it.
Wow, where do you keep it?
Inside of this big tank way back here.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Now, what if you run out of that? Do you have another option on the truck here to put out fires?
We do. We have a truck that's got even a bigger tank on it. It holds 3,000 gallons of water, and we can hook up to that truck with some of these bigger hoses and get more water out of it.
Excellent. Now, do you ever fight a fire with this truck with something besides water?
Besides water, yes. We can mix water with foam.
Foam? Are you guys going to all shave?
No, we're not going to shave. The foam makes a big blanket.
Oh, so does that put out the fire even quicker than the water?
Well, what it does is it mixes in with the water.
Yeah.
What we do is we can open up this nozzle here. Oh!
Thought you were going to get me wet.
What this does, Scratch, is this helps create a big foam blanket, and that blocks the air from getting to the fire, and it puts the fire out.
Oh, wow, that is so cool. Did you
is.
invent that, firefighter Brian?
I did not.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, do the bigger trucks, do they have the foam on them as well?
Yes, they do.
Oh, well, how long have you been using that then?
We have been using it for as long as I can remember, and I've been here for almost 15 years now.
Wow. I've been doing this show for a long time, and I never heard them talking about foam, so I have learned something very cool today. Now, how about some of the other items on the truck? Should we take a look at some of those quick?
Sure.
Well, to wrap things up here, Brian, you got some other tools on the side of the brush truck. It looks like you got a rake and a hoe and a shovel. What do you guys, when you're out in the field, you guys going to do some gardening?
No, not a whole lot of gardening. We use these tools for digging up brush that's been burning so we can help find hot spots and put the rest of the fire out.
Awesome. Well, Brian, I want to thank you so much for your time today, for showing us the cool new brush truck.
You're welcome, Scratch.
And we'll see you next time, everybody, because it's a Scratch the Fire Dog. I love to scratch out the fires. Oh, do you think I could drive the brush truck, Brian?
I don't think so, Scratch.
I don't have a driver's license, but it might be fun.
It might be.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of On Call. If you have questions, comments, an idea for the program, or would like to send a question in for Ask the Firefighter, feel free to call us at 952-985-4700 or email the address at the bottom of your screen. Thanks for joining us, and all fire units are clear.